So the book Awakening Beauty is finally complete. 15 years of work in that. So the book has three explorations actually. It has four parts. The fourth part is just the various understandings I've gathered during this work. The first part is about my work with rural children. Second part is with urban schools. And the fourth part is with urban design students, design architecture students. Um, so the first part is about how I understood beauty is part of your biology. And like everything else, that get completely destroyed because we engage with the world mentally. And we turn everything into acts of mind, thinking, reasoning, ideating. We completely lose our true connection with life, which can only established by senses. There's no other way. Senses are the only means by which you engage with the world. And what I recently found, a fantastic insight was that all your sensorial engagement are both quantitative and qualitative. You cannot escape that. That is the way our senses function. It has both quantitative aspect and qualitative aspect. Quantitative aspect is what cognition is all about, and qualitative aspect is what aesthetics is all about. So sense of beauty that way is is part and parcel of cognition. It just cannot be an afterthought like what modernity has done. So as long as you are looking at the world with the lens of modernity, modern literates, modern educated, you know, and of course the Western paradigm, you will never understand how the body functions. Because for them, the mind is more important, reasoning is more important, and body, in fact, they think that senses are not capable. That is there. But in order to live in the world, unless you have senses, there's nothing you can do about it. Senses are your only means to root yourself to the world, to nature. Anyway, so let me just tell you about this journey that I undertook on exploring what is beauty. And luckily, maybe because I was always a bad student, I never was compelled to have a ready-made answer for anything. I was able to hold a question and leave it there and allow understanding to take place. Because the educators are very happy with one answer. They put a full stop and that's it. I mean, good students. Huh? I'm talking about the people who get good marks, all that. Uh, so, so one thing that my first encounter with this was that while studying at NID, I think during the first 1 month itself, probably, a friend of mine, she showed me 5 logos. And she asked me which is the best. I looked at it. I looked at it twice, thrice. I could find no difference between all the five. Everything looked alike to me, you know. But then I understood that unless you fine tune your eyes, fine tune your senses, you will not have access to these finer aspects. That was very clear to me because she was not just showing all the five to same and asking me which is the best. No, there were minor variations that she had tried out, and so it took some time. I mean, first of all, I understood that my first job at NIT was to fine tune my eyes. That I must train my eyes to see more and more, not more and more, finer and finer. Of course, seeing must get established as your default setting. It's what education takes away. So that, of course, is the first requirement, that you are in the beingness of seeing, of your senses, choiceless. And that seeing can also be fine tuned to look at the minute differences, you know, and which is what actually give you access to beauty. So, so I took on a journey then. So that's the first encounter. Second encounter was that after I stayed in NID for another 6 months or so, I began to realize that almost everybody in the institute was having very similar aesthetic sensibility, and that too very Western. So I began to wonder, why is it so? If our senses need to be sensitized and if it is part of our biology, then why is it that it is Western? It can be similar. I mean, that of course. But when similarity stands out as something else, something Western, that becomes more clear, you know, because there isn't too much variation when you're authentic. Because to be biological, to be authentic, doesn't produce newness. That's again a modern misunderstanding about newness and change. No. Authenticity can be the same almost everywhere, but to be authentic, your beingness has to function, your senses has to function. So it's not something that is coming from outside. So, and of course, I started doing all kinds of activities, self-designed activities that enabled me to observe, observe, observe. And one of them definitely was photography. A course that actually we were to take 2 weeks, I extended for at least 4 months. Every day going out, shooting, 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 you know. So, so this question always I held, that what is beauty and how does it arise in us? Then later, after I left NID, as I was traveling in rural tribal areas, I found that people are with no training, no education, they are able to create beautiful things. And whichever village I went, old rural tribal villages, I found that this is getting repeated. Wherever you go, you find beauty, but no effort. And they are innocent about it. So, they don't think that is, they don't celebrate that beauty, that's, but it is still there. It's there. And so that this I kept on observing. And one day what happened was that I found this one potter lady was scooping out circular clay, clay plates. So there's a slab, knife in her hand. So she's scooping out circular clay plates. And I found that all of them were quite circular and she didn't seem to be making so much effort. Then I recalled my NID days, where I think for about 3 months at least, or 3, 4 months, every day morning, 1 hour we spend learning to draw circles, every day, circle drawing, So here I find this lady with no training just doing it. So these were very convincing for me to, you know, to realize that there is something that is within you that is not in your control. I mean, you need not control it. So again, this idea of control again comes from a modern mind. Because you don't control your digestion process, How it just happens. Of course, you can control what you eat, but not your digestion process. So, and and then in 2000, I began to work with. I began to pay more attention to the senses. It was in 2000 that a child came to my life, and when she came, I decided never say no to her, always follow her, and never lie to her. Because of that, I began to pay real attention to everything that she was doing. And I found that she's engaging with the world with all the senses. Any mundane thing for us, mundane, is important to her. Any leaf flying, anything and everything. The red ants, the ants, everything became of interest to this little girl. She would go around, look at these things. So I realized that senses are the most important things that we need to restudy because it has no place in the modern paradigm. You know, both the people who talk about spirituality, who say senses have something wrong with that, one side, and the other, the highly educated who says that no, senses don't give us access to things. There are far more. Well, life has designed it for you because if you extend this, you may not be there at all. You might die. You see? Imagine your the sound, the maximum and the minimum, suppose it get extended. Do you think you'll have to stay here? You know, imagine hearing the sound of the earth moving, you know. So I don't understand why people don't be happy with whatever they have and use it very well. That doesn't happen at all. I mean, nobody even uses senses. That's a educated doesn't use their senses. That's a different matter. But if you look at their science paradigm, the Western science paradigm, they talk about evidences. But I hardly find in the modern educational paradigm we ever use our senses. So what evidence are we then talking about? You know? So anyway, so because I became interested in senses from 2003. So 3 years I kept on observing her, documenting what she did. From 2003, I started doing a workshop in the village during the 2 month holidays called Sensing Nature, Knowing Nature. And that work completely changed the way I looked at children because I realized that we have totally undermined them in every way. And modern fellows are not going to understand them at all because of their ego, because of their emotion that they are developed, and their absolute lack of authenticity because they are totally relying on Western paradigm. They will never be able to understand neither children nor the Indian knowledge system. I'm purposely saying this because now there are lots of characters, celebrating Indian knowledge system without ever going through the processes that will awaken what is this system within you. You have read another book, that's all. And because of your silly patriotism, you're celebrating it. You be authentic, and that is what Indian knowledge system or any knowledge system is all about. That is timeless. When you say Sanatan, that means it's a timeless activity. That is what life is all about, provided you live it as an authentic being. By reading a book, you don't become Sanatan. Please don't, don't misunderstand this. The characteristic of being alive, yes, give me a minute. I don't know. Yeah, that can only happen if you are sensorially connected with the world, authentically learning the way the nature has enabled you to learn, right? So let me share this work with you. So this is the first part of the session. This is my exploration with children. Sensing nature and knowing nature is the name of the workshop that I was doing. Just give me 1 minute. I'll just take my PowerPoint and then show you. Mm. Okay, let me share this now. Yeah, so this is the book, Awakening Beauty. Yeah. Yeah, as I told you, there are three sections. My exploration with three sections. Three explorations. First with children and artisans, second with urban school, third with design and you know educated people. So the first is my realization that beauty is a biological faculty. You can distort it like everything else. You can distort it, or you can, without interfering, awaken that. So, hey Ranjana, you're there, no?
Yeah,
Are
I'm
you
here.
there? हाँ तो वो योर को होस्ट है ना
क्या बोल रहे हो?
होस्ट है ना योर को होस्ट ना
या क्यों?
हाँ
Is
तो
somebody waiting?
हाँ वेट कर रहा था आई
एक
होप यू
मिनट
कैन
एक
सी
मिनट
सी
नो,
हाँ
वो नॉर्मली ना एनेबल वेटिंग रूम कैंसिल कर देना है ना.
तो कर दो
किया है किया.
okay okay so I'll just show you this exploration that I did with children. I called it sensitizing the senses. So this I was doing from 2003 onwards for about 10 years. I continuously did, trying to understand various aspects of senses. So in one way, it is absurd to sensitize senses, especially for children, because actually what in nature, what you need is a space for awakening, not for meeting louder. Yeah. All right. So you need to sensitize senses only for the educated. So the moment children go to school, you will have to rework on them because schooling, the basic purpose of schooling is to desensitize your senses. It doesn't function. So, and senses are door to the outer world, and it is also what awakens our inner capacities. So So making sense of the world, as I was telling you, is both at a qualitative and a quantitative level. And to my mind, to be whole, the whole idea of holistic should come from here and not from the way all this grammar that modern, schools are trying to do in the name of holistic, having some event in the evening, morning, something else, you know. To be whole is to regain your integrity of being. That is what. So the workshop that I do has always been non-teaching, absolutely no teaching, create environment for them to function. So we used to do this, but I'm not very sure if I do this, do this kind of workshop again, I will do this, sitting in silence and all that. Of course, if children are in a natural environment, silence is already there in them, actually. So I'm not sure whether, but this is what I did at that time. All of us sit together and start with this sitting in silence for some time. Basically, I call it listening. It's not really silence, listening to what is happening around. So just paying attention to all the sounds that are around you. That is how this begins. So there were various activities that I did. This was one of the most interesting activities. So I asked children to collect dry leaves and keep them at some kind of a scale, the darkest to the lightest. And luckily around that time, I had no money actually. I'm telling luckily because I didn't have money, I bought only the poster colors, that six set poster colors. It had only red, black, blue, yellow, green, white. That's it. To my surprise, I found that all children were able to mix and match and get this color. That was really surprising because I had repeated this exercise with urban teachers. And then I found that most of them could not do this. And also, I also found a difference in the process that children do. This is true of non-literate people also. Because in the workshops, I also invite the illiterate ayahs and the drivers, and they usually don't have much problem in mixing and getting the color. It is the educated who have problem actually, who have been taught reasoning. So I have a feeling that there is a non-rational way of, finding solutions. Well, I don't want to insist it's called intuition and all that because I don't understand the mechanics of it. I know that it is not reasoning. Reasoning is quite obvious, that you say, do this and do this and do this, and that kind of clear thing you get. But it's a little bit more intangible. The fact is that they're able to do it. How the brain is working is not that easy to, figure out. And of course, this is not the, uh, you know, uh, realm of thought or idea to find a solution. I would leave it there. I would say wait, 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 and see if this gets revealed to you. So this is what I was telling about the workshop I did with school teachers, and how none of them could do it. But you know, so in fact, the thing is that these exercises happen on a very spontaneous level, because one day I was sitting outside and took some leaves. These are all jackfruit leaves. I just put them like this and I found, wow, this is a very nice activity that can become, uh, you know, to sensitize observation, to see the differences in color. So, And of course, there wasn't any so-called facility and all that, simple places. And none of them ever complained of anything. So you can see this. So, and I started doing with all kinds of colors. Then just fine tuning just one color, looking at just one, shades of green. You can see this, one side is the original, other side is the color. Again, reminding you just from the 6 colors, poster colors. No help. And what is interesting about rural children is that they never come back and ask, seek help. Somehow there is uh, I don't know whether it can be called confidence,
Why?
that they feel very independent about it. They just do it. They will try and solve it. I don't know what is a good term for that. Yeah. Anyway, they have this within them that they will solve it. For example, I'll give you another example later when that thing comes. Yeah. Yeah. So you can see the beauty of just these leaves. So many shades of yellow. Like, even if you're not able to color it, just looking at them, just seeing that, because, in all my workshop, I ask this one question: what is the color of leaf? Invariably, I get the answer green. So, so even just looking at them to see, just the shades of yellow, how many that you can find, you know. So this is one of the exercises we used to do at NIT, called color scale. But I started doing it with actual things. I don't, abstract the color and then do color scale. The reason why observation doesn't get developed in design and architectural schools is that they're still using abstracted principles, not concrete. Even though design, architecture, and all that cannot exist without observation, there's no focus on observation. That observation is the key for everything, not design and architecture, for every knowledge pursuit. Observation is the only means. So another group would do this. They would just pick up any leaf. So what becomes very interesting is that as children slowly start observing, even adults, I find it even more clear in adults. When they spend little time a week, 10 days on this kind of things, they begin to see that everything is beautiful. you know. Otherwise, I usually get this, I get the so on exercise I give, ask them to bring beautiful things. I can can be very sure that 95% will come back with flower. It's that cliche idea, flower is beautiful, is inside you, so that is what you will bring. So once you go through this activities, then you find that everything is beautiful. So this is what happens when you slowly, by the time children reach about 9, 10, 11 years, they would have become very good with reading and writing, and their ability to see changes, and then they begin to read. So the right brain activity completely stops. And then it is taken over by your mind. That's the whole problem, actually. This is another activity again with dry leaves. So, as they were doing that, I also thought, why not we use dry leaves for making sceneries? So, and purposely, I was avoiding these regular terms like what do you call that? It's called something, no?
Collage.
Collage. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These kind of I thought let me drop all this nonsense. Let them not wrap them into words that we give and leave them free. So they would just call it. We also did it with old magazines. So they would call it magazine work or some name. I don't know what they had. But anyway, otherwise, you get completely then trapped into the rules. Collage means this. All are dry leaves, huh? Can't believe that there's so much color. You're just dry leaves. Bamboo leaves, all kinds of leaves they were exploring for this. So the background that you see is bamboo. That is this corrugated effect is because of that. And with magazines. So wherever I travel, I try and pick up this, colored magazines wherever, and children would just cut and use it for their work.
I'm remembering a story to share when the time is right.
And how they start mixing paper and leaf. But of course, they're not breaking any rule or anything. They spontaneously they do it. So they don't get trapped in rules. You see, our thing is that we are trapped in rules, so we break the rule. That is a modern framework. But the indigenous framework is that there are no rules, so you don't get trapped. And what I meant by rule is the mental framing of rules. But otherwise, there are natural systems. You follow that, you know. So you don't have to break a rule. You are free flowing. So of course, this is something that I had written a long time ago. Awakened sense is the basis of all art forms. Now I'm extending that to the whole knowledge, not just art, but awakened senses is the basis for our existence, actually. So the fundamental difference that you find with my approach is that I don't create a product to be learned. So I feel that if you are you become a good singer provided you have ability to hear first, and of course you should develop your voice and all that. But hearing becomes the most important aspect if you want to be a good. You have to be a good listener if you want to be a good musician. I would rather focus on processes like that rather than teaching them skills and and rules and regulations of that would happen slowly, but you don't have to start with that. So, and one group was doing observation drawing. So we had actually divided this whole 50, 60 children into 6, 7 groups doing various activities, and every week they change. That is how this was happening. Of course, my idea of drawing has changed quite a lot after this. This was in 2003. But after working with the school, 2011 to 14, my whole idea of drawing has changed. And of course, one group was also doing freehand drawing. And something fantastic used to happen in some of those drawing, groups.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can see all kinds of explorations that children have done. This is very interesting. They started collecting uh, this laterite stones and slowly scooping out different colors from that. And of course, the other things are rock and all kinds of things like that.
Hmm.
They go around look for all kinds of things that can be used to create this. And of course, there's a group that is doing clay work. So here is what I found another very interesting thing that how uh, so I was not providing anything for them, just I give them clay and that's it. No tools, no other equipments, nothing. And so they want water when they are doing this. So what I found this child, what he had done was to create a container using leaf. He put a ring of clay ring. Within that, he kept a leaf and then poured water in that. And all of them were doing similar activities to solve the problem. Unlike an urban child, they will never come back and ask, I don't have this, sir, you do me, or nothing like that. Whatever they require, they just figure out how to solve it. Well, I want to remind you nothing wrong with the urban child, but everything wrong with the modern parent. because of their misunderstanding about what is the true capability of a child. That's right. Again, 10, 12, 13-year-old boys and girls doing this, Again, the focus is observe the village and recreate what you see in the village. So later I introduced stitching. I found this very nice actually. Stitching. So much focus you have to put in. Again, since there were no rules, it was very interesting that how they were, again, no teaching also. Huh?
बात ये है प्रधान जी कि हम भड़काना चाहते हैं एक काम करिए वो रिपोर्टर से बात करवाइए हाँ
You can see this now. Then there was little sand, but this doesn't happen always because sand is very expensive. One of the session there was some sand, so they were really having good time. This is another very interesting thing that I introduced called negative space. And of course, children would also do positive space with that. So this is basically, you can see how the way the tendrils have been cut. So what you see, white is the empty space actually. They put a paper back and then tuck it. So on a black sheet, they cut this out. That is the whole thing. You can see the sophistication of the tendrils, Again, I think this was done by this boy who was 13 or 14. And of course, they do all kinds of, extensions from there. See, the only starting point I engage. Then they do all kinds of this coloring and all that comes from their own getting different types of, background paper, all that. So this is the first part of the book. And the book launch is in Bangalore on the 2nd December. Anyway, I'll inform the group. Anyone interested can join. And of course, there is pre-publication rates also. If you're interested to check. So anything specific to the book and the topic, we can, if you feel like, maybe another 5-10 minutes.
So you said about census having the quality and quantity. And you also said that that becomes the cognitive part and aesthetic.
Yeah.
So,
clarity on that. Yeah, I'll make that clear. So, so you had something to eat today. So you found that it had a bit more salt than that is required by you. Can vary, all right? So you felt that what you ate had little more salt. So when you do when you that experience has both quantity and quality, no? Understand that? Quantification and quality, understanding quality happens together. So the optimization of senses is what is required for our survival. It can be distorted. Please understand, for humans, it can be distorted, even for animals now, because the kind of food that dogs and all that eat now, no? All these pet dogs and also the street dogs, what we give them is actually absolutely not good for them, no? I mean, all over. I mean, it's not just in the street. I mean, I've heard plastic coming out of some fish and all that. No? So, I mean, left, right, and center, we have destroyed everything with our great inventions. But yeah, otherwise, the function of that is to optimize your need for sustaining life. That is the function of, that's what senses do. So if you're very sensitive to the senses, then this is good for me, this is bad for me, you know. And I think, see, I want to share one very interesting event based on this. Four of us were eating. Me, my daughter who was around 4, 5 years, and her some cousin sister, she was around 16, and my wife around 45 or so around that time, some years ago that was. And we were eating Karela. And I was an older self that time. Huh? I still had a little bit of dadagiri in me. So I was telling my daughter that Karela is very good. It's good for health, good iron and all that. And well, she was a little confused what to do now. And I also tried with the 16-year-old. She told me, go to hell. I eat what I like, you see. For her, it was very clear. So it's much easier to con a child. That's what I'm trying to tell you here. Then I found this 45-year-old was really relishing Karela. She was really enjoying Karela. So I asked her, that were you like this always? He said, no, no, no. Up to 17, 18, I never ate Karela at all. And one day I felt like eating. So the space for felt like eating is what is missing in modernity. Because we are always under the theoretical, some expert telling you this is good for you, you eat. Whether you like it or not, that is secondary. So we are all into mental eating, not physical, not body's needs, but mind's needs. So when when the body is what the focus, then it will probably start making all the necessary corrections.
So there was this, when I was in my engineering job, there was this guy who would do all the assemblies together. These fine motor parts had to be assembled for, and that guy, out of nowhere, started training us on looking at small screws and telling exact size, length, and diameter.
Yeah.
Just, I have, this is the qualitative. Every screw is
Yeah.
same structure wise, but with my eyes, I can tell you which screw size it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that measurement in my senses.
Yeah. 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 That's precisely the thing. So all the older generation had this ability. All their activities were measured with the senses, not numerical, but sensorial calculation. You know, I'm not against numerical, but I think we must base first in the body's way of measuring, And then use then there is a connection established with the body and the mind. Because we deny the body, we think as if, mathematics is something that the mind has to do. You know, no, whole body is doing mathematics all the time.
I have an example, Jinan, to give.
Yeah.
When I was very young, my mother, after an evening meal, if there was any leftover, she would tell me to get a utensil that will kind of fit what is left over.
Yeah.
And it would be, this reminded me because
Yeah.
her estimation of how big the utensils should be would be
Yeah.
accurate, whereas mine was not. I mean, and it was a fun thing. There was no right or wrong.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
she would tell me and she would say, I don't think this is big enough or this is too large,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was a way for me to learn.
Absolutely.
without
Absolutely.
without teaching me or without even, I mean, I
No.
didn't know why I needed to learn that.
Mhm.
If I would be there, I would have asked, बड़ा है तो क्या हुआ? आ तो जाएगा ना. So I would be that rowdy teenager who would give back her answer.
Yeah, that's a teenager's problem here. But I don't think a small child will do that. If because they should begin right in the beginning, na? 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old are already doing it, so there is no, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it's a teenager problem, but yeah, it is. I can see that happening as well. That someone's trying to say something and you're trying to do differently.
Yeah. All right. Okay. If there is nothing more, then we can. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thank you.
next Sunday we'll meet again.
Okay.
And this is recorded, so I'll be putting it. All right. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.